Record on this computer. All right, cool. Guys, we are in our third week of Lunch and Learns. Super excited. Thanks for all you guys who are here and all the people who are going to join. We're looking forward to talking with our main man, Adam Gurney. Adam Gurney is the main contact and the president of the Gurney Law Group. They have been practicing law. He has been practicing law since 2013. He does real estate law and also does some estate planning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. So you do, you and your firm do about 500 transactions. Is that correct? A year?
On a yearly basis. Yeah.
Yearly basis. That's a lot of transactions, Adam. Great job.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
you guys accomplished that with yourself, 3 attorneys and 2 paralegals. So a total of 6 of you guys?
Yeah, that's what it is now. We started with just myself and 1 paralegal and have slowly, worked up as the volume has increased.
Awesome. That's great. You are married with 1 child, and another one on the way. We just talked about a little bit. That's awesome. That's great. 5 years you've been married?
Coming up on 5 years.
Coming up on 5 years.
With this coronavirus, I hope we make it to 5 years, but.
Yeah, I mean, numbers are up. There's some people out there fighting, but
we're doing pretty good.
What somebody might not know about you, Adam, a fun fact about you is that you are a 3 handicap golfer.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, my main man Kevin Hinton just joined us. He's gonna want to talk to you on the sidebar on that because
okay.
I think he's got you beat, but but you're coming up on him. So
I also haven't been playing. I've only also been playing about 8 or 9 years. So unlike a lot of people, I didn't start until after college. So I went from an 18 to a 3 in about 8 to 9 years.
Nice. And what's the secret there? You just hit them straight, like we talked about?
A lot of living room practice.
A lot of reps. All right.
A lot of indoor putting mats and watching a lot of Tiger Woods.
Awesome. That's great. All right, Adam, let's dive into this. So Adam, you're the kind of the format that we've been following and you and I've talked about is, first and foremost, we understand that our mindset is most important, right? Mm-hmm. So, pre-pandemic here, what was your mindset of how you approached your, real estate attorney law business?
Sure. Well, before the pandemic, my, main focus every day was just making sure that my firm had all the, procedures and precautions in place and my staff was well equipped to, handle a large volume of transactions without ever making a mistake or dropping the ball or, missing a deadline, missing a signature. Even the smallest things in a real estate deal can throw off the whole thing. So my mind was always focused on, everything we do just being, airtight. So we can handle a large volume of transactions without having any issues while still being able to deliver a high level of, customer service to, all of our clients. Okay. So being able to not just bring deals in and close them, but deliver a very, a high level of service along the way, which is tough.
So Adam, I work with you, so I know how you do business, but your mindset was always, hey, I want to scale this business. Is that correct? Like I want to make sure that I am set to do an abundant amount of transactions.
Yeah. As many as we could do, like I said, while providing a good level of service. People will sense, clients will sense when they don't have your full attention or when you're not responding to them at the rate that they want to be responded to, especially in this era of emails where emails have almost become an ongoing chat room. Mm-hmm. It's you got to be on top of it or clients will sense that. So, the goal is always and people freak out when they can't get a hold of their attorneys. That's one of the first lessons I learned. People, most importantly, if they're not at least getting a response saying, I'll get back to you later, something like that, they just freak out. So sure. Being able to do as many transactions as we can while always still being, super responsive, reachable, and, there for our clients.
That's awesome. That's great. You, so in our conversations, so actually let me skip there. So now how is your mindset, been adjusted, or how are you approaching this now that we've had a pandemic hit?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very different, for the last handful of years, 5, 6 years, the market, I'm sure you'd probably agree, the market's been in a pretty good place for a long time, and just consistent flow of deals for years now. And all of a sudden we have this major disruption. So now for the first time in years, I'm not as focused on, I mean, we still have many deals coming in, many current deals that we're closing. So our, my main focus is still on that, but at the same time, we have to deal with one, where are we going from here? All of a sudden, what's next month going to look like, and the month after that? And then at the same time, when this first hit, we were hell bent on adjusting all of our routines, policies, procedures to account for all this, making sure our clients were legally protected when it comes, to coronavirus issues. One, what happens if they get the virus? Two, what happens if the city, the government, whatever, shut down? So something about the deal couldn't happen, whether the closing or one step along the way that throws the whole deal off, or what have you. So my mindset has really just been how to, get deals done efficiently during this time, while making sure. It's tough to account for every variable that can, interfere with these transactions, while at the same time seeing where we're going. What does next month look like? What's the fall going to look like, et cetera.
So Adam, have you what is how would the transaction be impacted if somebody did say, hey, I have coronavirus? What, have you seen that yet?
No, none of my clients that I know of have actually gotten the virus.
Okay.
But when this first happened, we were implementing provisions into our attorney review letters that said, one, if you get the virus, closing automatically extended after a certain period, either party can cancel. I mean, who knows if somebody ends up in the hospital, can't get out of the hospital, something like that. But more so is another provision we added, which after we started doing this, you probably know, Joe, the broker, they came out with a template form for the parties to sign an addendum. It was like a coronavirus addendum,
right? Which
broadly stated, if for reasons beyond the parties' control, we can't do something along the way that, impairs our ability to close on time or get something done, no one will be liable. We all agree to, work with it and move forward. So in the beginning, before that stuff started happening, we were coming up with, language to include into these contracts to make sure every possible scenario was accounted for. And that was tough. As soon as you thought you would have it, a new issue would arise that you would all of a sudden have to account for. For example, a lot of people, everything was fine and their loans would be approved and clear to close. So their mortgage contingencies would lapse, and then they would lose their jobs the day before closing. So you no longer have a mortgage contingency, but now your loan, they won't give you the money to close. So now what do? Are you just in breach of contract? Well, yeah, technically you are. So now we went and added a provision that said at any point throughout this transaction, even after the loan is cleared to close, if the buyer loses their job, they're not obligated to close the deal and get a refund of their earnest money. Right. Things like that. Or right now I'm representing an investor that's buying a property, and he wants to make sure that that he gets updated rent rolls, the week of closing. You might have got a rent roll in the beginning of March and it's perfect. But, what do you think rent rolls look like now, across the whole country?
Yeah.
So now we've had to add provisions, that say we demand to see an updated rent roll, and we have the right to object to that rent roll and get out of the deal if it's materially, impacted by, coronavirus and resulting in people not paying rent or disputes with tenants, et cetera. So situations come up, and then, you account for them.
So Adam, these provisions that you're talking about, and that we're seeing out there in the real estate world, is this going to be our new norm?
For the rest of this year,
yeah,
probably.
being an attorney and in studying these and looking at these, I mean, do you think that these documents just become part of the closing document, closing package, or is it just
For right now, I mean, until this thing's under control, definitely it can't go on this way forever because you're, how can I put it? You're decreasing the value of a contract. If at any point anybody can get out of it because things are happening left and right, how's anybody supposed to make plans or hold somebody to their word or hold somebody to an agreement if, anything can go wrong and everybody can just get out of it? So, I mean, I hope we're not operating in this world forever. You would hope that we can get back to the point where, we assume that if I sign an agreement and we agree to close, we're going to close. And if I don't, I'm going to be held responsible for that. And not everybody just has this out. Because as I'm sure Joe, sometimes, a lot of times it's very useful, but then a lot of times people take advantage of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
People just want to get out of deals in the middle of it just because there's a pandemic, even though it's not even affecting them personally or their ability to close at all. So it can't go on like this forever because it just, it diminishes the contract itself just too much.
Got it. So Adam, you and I talked a lot about your strategy pre-pandemic, and then now, obviously you have the pandemic that's hit here. Mm-hmm. And your pre-pandemic strategy is, hey, you had no doubt in your staff. You were putting processes in place, right? Things are looking good. Keeping systems in place, right? And then now we have to adjust our strategy, right? Mm-hmm. You said that. You said now I got to come up with a new strategy. So so in the attorney world and for the realtors on place here, what does a strategy like that look like for you, and how does it impact the realtor?
Well, I think the main thing is just trying to really figure out where this is going. When this whole thing ends, are we going to have the busiest end of summer, fall, winter we've ever seen? Mm-hmm. Or are we just going to expect a slow market, for the rest of the year, right? Or maybe even beyond? And that you kind of, like everybody else, I'm kind of waiting and seeing. I'm leaning more on you guys than you guys probably are on me to tell me that. And I'm looking at the amount of contracts coming in and, all that impacts, whether I can keep my staff, whether maybe I need more staff, or maybe I need to cut back. In some ways it hasn't affected me at all because my firm has always been really set up to work remotely and virtually since our firm was started, years ago. So I'm lucky in that regard. We've always been a little bit ahead.
Adam, what were some of the things that you had set up prior to that were, that can allow you to work remotely? And again, for the benefit of the client, right? Like how what did you have set up prior to?
Well, strong email communication, and then Slack. We use Slack at my firm heavily. We've been using that already for a few years since it started. Mm-hmm. So that's huge. Okay. In our world, with our attorneys out and about at closings all the time, we're rarely all together anyway.
Right.
So that part, like I said, hasn't been a big adjustment as long as you can continue to communicate effectively when you're not together, which is something we've always, been able to do, because everybody knows, stay on top of your emails and respond to all emails immediately. From working with us, you, the agents, the clients, our rule is, responses within an hour or, we have problems.
Right.
And then, like I said, also we have Slack among us so we can communicate effectively. So and then things like, seller documents, mailing them to clients with specific instructions and how to sign them and how to send them back and stuff like that. We don't need to meet our sellers in person like everybody, used to do. We send them their FedEx labels and all that stuff. So a lot of that stuff hasn't been affected. And then a lot of the closing stuff, handling stuff remotely, by phone, whatever, only helps us be more efficient. I would think it's probably impacting your world.
Yeah.
Not being able to meet with people in person, not doing showings in person, probably more so than it affects us.
Right. So for you guys, this is actually kind of forced everyone to be more efficient, correct? And then there's probably on the other side of this, what can the realtor expect that, like, what closings are going to look, what are closings going to look like moving forward?
Well, I think just like me, for all the realtors, I think it's a good thing that we're not even allowed in the closing room anymore.
Right.
A lot of agents didn't go to closings, but a lot of them did. Some
Yeah.
because they wanted to, some because they felt obligated to.
Right.
Sometimes it's a good marketing thing. You kind of, show up, get more in-person interaction with your client, maybe come and present a gift. But now the fact that that's not even allowed
Mm-hmm.
is just time in your day. No more, looking for parking around the loop.
Yeah.
Um,
Paying $45 for the half hour.
yeah, and you find another way to, make your impression on that client during and after closing. And I think that before, there might have been somewhat of an expectation for your client to see you at closing. I remember having a lot of clients, be like, oh, I thought my realtor would be at closing today. And I would tell them, oh, they're busy doing something else, or they'll be here at the end or something like that. Now, with that expectation out of the window, I would think it would save agents a lot of time, like it's saving me a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the actual transaction right now and what you're seeing. Okay. There's a lot of negotiation going on. I think it's fair to say that all of a sudden the negotiation is continuing to go on, correct?
Yeah.
After the price and the closing date has been set, then all of a sudden the negotiations have gone on. So talk to us about some negotiations that you're seeing and also what you're seeing in today's environment.
Yeah. So, I know realtors talk about like buyer's market or seller's market, and I don't know enough about that to say, but from my perspective, it has seemed like a seller's market for a few years now. And I say that because when we'd be in a lot of multiple offer situations where I'm in, or sometimes even not, but when I'm representing a buyer in a transaction, it would always be really tough to get the buyer everything that they wanted or felt like they were entitled to. And it always felt like the buyer was the one, sacrificing more than the seller in order to get a deal done. The one having to accept less of a credit or pay a higher price than they wanted to, and they would just take it and, move on and close. And sellers, even if it was a matter of $100, a lot of sellers would just draw that line, and out of principle, I'm not going beyond that. And I'll sell to somebody else, especially in, a lot of multiple offer situations where they know they have other buyers, are quick to just say, this is it, final offer, take it or leave it. And, buyers are, their backs against the wall, and they usually end up taking it, of course, but, with a lot of times leave a sour taste in their mouth. And, but now you're starting to see buyers get away with a lot more. I don't know if it's affecting price negotiations. I'm not involved in that process, but now when we get a deal, if the parties are, $2,500 apart, $5,000 apart, you're seeing a seller would be foolish to lose a ready, willing, and able buyer over a couple $1,000s right now for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're starting to see buyers now have leverage when it comes to those negotiations, and also timeline of closing.
Yep.
They can delay closing a lot easier, get sellers to meet their timelines a lot easier, just because they're holding the cards now, because buyers are fewer and far between right now.
Got it. So you're seeing this. Are you seeing this pretty regularly? Like, is this going on? And you do 500 transactions a year, so you do a lot more than all of us. So are you seeing that negotiation going on more regularly?
Absolutely. I'm seeing buyers getting a lot more of what they want, and I'm seeing a lot more. I don't think sellers are quick to drastically drop the price during these negotiations by a lot, but I'm seeing a lot more people, frankly, able to renegotiate the price during this time. Now, a lot more of it was happening when the pandemic first hit, where sellers were just losing buyers left and right. But I have seen I'm had a deal scheduled to close tomorrow where a seller dropped the price $45,000 after the inspection.
45. I mean, you and I had one that the seller dropped at 10, right?
Right.
Deal done.
If you have to sell and you have a buyer, what choice do you really have? And in the long run, I think it probably makes sense for the sellers to take the money and be done.
Yeah, that's why that is wild. So
But
Okay,
at the
so
same time, you see a lot of buyers thinking they're going to get whatever they want, and sellers are like, "You're crazy. I'm not dropping the price. Take a hike." And I'm
right,
seeing a lot of buyers even forfeit their earnest money more so than ever. I had a buyer in a deal where in the middle of the deal, when this first hit, they just demanded that this seller drop the price of a new construction property by
right,
$100,000 wouldn't close.
yeah,
And this was after attorney review and everything, just thinking they'd be able to get whatever they want. And the guy said, absolutely not, take a hike. And the buyer forfeited like 20 grand plus of earnest money because he'd rather lose that than close right now, given everything that's going on. And he wasn't even losing his job or anything.
wow. So Adam, are you seeing? Okay, so are you seeing the typical between conversations on this with realtors? Is a lot like, hey, I got to represent my client here. This is what we're doing, or I'm doing this. Is that sort of the same sort of conversation between the attorneys right now? Just being like, man, the unknown is the unknown, and this is what the client's willing to do. Or are you advising at a certain point in time?
I mean, I don't really advise much when it comes to dollars and cents. I mean, that's such a subjective and personal,
Yeah,
business choice, really.
yeah,
So at some point, the agents kind of have to get back involved, and the buyers and sellers have to just get back involved and figure out what works. I kind of lend my 2 cents on leverage that I think they might have or not, specifically from my conversations with attorneys. Like I have attorneys say a lot of things like, listen, my client's willing to drop the price, but it's got to be reasonable.
right, right,
And so I kind of relay that. But I don't say, oh, I talked to this attorney and I know you can get 10 grand more. Don't budge unless you get it. And then a lot of times I have to advise my client, like, you could probably squeeze the seller for another $2,500 if you wanted to. If you say, I'm not closing unless I get another 5 grand, you probably could squeeze the seller for that extra money, but
right.
it's just not, you're taking advantage of somebody right now, and it's not a good practice. And we're in these times where you do kind of have to just, be a reasonable person and be a good neighbor, and you kind of have to juggle business with that.
Right. No, absolutely. You mentioned something a little earlier here. You said, the different phases of this, and you and I talked about this as well. From your standpoint, you had the first week of this hit, right? And that was sort of the phase one.
Mm-hmm.
From an attorney's standpoint, what were the phases that we've hit over the last couple of weeks?
Phase one, just chaos. Deals falling apart left and right. For the first time, I really learned what a domino effect exists in real estate. Even if you had a buyer and seller, my client and the opposing party still engaged and wanting to get a deal done,
Mm-hmm.
That seller is buying some other place. And the person he's buying from is buying somewhere else. And the chances of nobody in this whole line of dominoes being affected by this thing is just, the chances were so low. So even where you had a buyer and seller that wanted to close a deal, they couldn't because of, a contingent deal that was going on. So one, tons of deals either falling apart, or for the deals that were staying together, the parties rushing to get them closed. And then two, having so many of the same conversations with clients about everything that's going on. I'm sure you too. I mean, every client had to have a long talk now about, their whole mindset and financial status a lot of times changed. So we had to have a whole new conversation about whether or not they wanted to move forward with the deal or not. So it was just utter chaos, the first week, whether deals were falling apart or staying together, or how to keep them together. And that's when the attorney reviews were going on forever with adding provisions and renegotiating and all that. Now, I think we've finally shifted to a place where I think at this point, people probably know whether they're losing their job or not, and sellers know whether they can sell or not. So for those that are still engaged in real estate deals that haven't dropped off because of something that's going on, it's back to normal. Normal real estate deals, pretty normal closing times, everything being normal. So you're kind of either impacted by this thing or not, or as I saw in the news a couple days ago, I thought it was good. The country's divided right now into people who are either doing Zoom conferences every day
Yeah.
or those who are not.
Right.
And if
Right.
you're doing Zoom conferences every day, you're probably moving forward with your real estate deal as it should be and getting ready to close.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard an interesting stat, and it said that a third of the first thing that comes out is a third of the renters, right, in America are not paying rent right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, think about this though. So check this out, right? That was my first reaction. So then I said, "Oh wow, man, holy cow!" Well, then if you look in normal times, guess who doesn't? Guess what percentage doesn't pay their rent? A
A
third.
lot.
A third. I mean, so it's like, so it
Yeah.
was like at the end of the day, it's like you're hearing these things and you have anxiety around it, right? Of like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. A third of the America is not paying their rent. People who are renting right now, and then you go back and look and say, oh wait, last year at this time, a third of the people in America were not paying their rent. So
Right.
the number didn't increase that much at all, if at all, right?
Yeah. And my firm has, we do a lot of evictions and we do a lot of foreclosures also.
Yeah.
And all that is just shut down right now. You're not allowed to file an eviction right now, and the
Right.
courts are closed, and you can't file a foreclosure. So I think that's probably, tenants and homeowners know that.
Yeah.
So I would think the number has increased somewhat, but right, I can tell you from doing this stuff, there's always people that are just in a perfect market, not paying their mortgage, not paying rent,
Yeah.
being shitty tenants or, what have you.
How about your numbers? How have your numbers been impacted over the last week? I know you track stuff and you have systems. Are you seeing, what are the purchase agreements down?
Yeah,
Yeah.
down dramatically,
Yeah.
especially for this time of year.
Right.
Probably 30 to 40% of what we would normally be doing in April, the peak of the market. We haven't got a new single contract today, and it's Monday.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
spring Monday, and not even a single new contract. So, yeah.
Where typically you'd be expecting, at least 10 or
Yep.
more, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about tools, Adam. I want to jump into this of like,
Sure.
let's go a little bit of the vision of what do closings look like in the future? We talked about, the guaranteed rate flash closings or curbside closings, or you and I did a virtual notary today, which was the first that you've done, and things like that. So let's talk about that. What do you see the future being?
So if you ask most of the people in the real estate industry, we think a lot of this change is for the good.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's, making us more efficient. Now before title companies were taking 2 hours to close transactions and everybody attending them for really about 30 minutes of actual legal work. Now we're able to just get done in 30 minutes because lenders are sending a lot of the boilerplate, non-negotiable documents to the clients to sign in advance, which they can just sign digitally over email. So now when I finally hop on the phone with the client or the Zoom to go through the documents with the client, we're only focusing on the actual documents that matter for the closing. Handling closings this way, where we're doing them virtually and remotely, and where clients, you're hearing a lot about this curbside closing, where clients are just pulling up, a closer from the title company is coming down and to their car, basically a drive-through closing.
Right.
It's working well.
Right.
And the clients are, they're driving in, they're there for 20, 30 minutes and they're gone. So before, where you take off a whole day of work or a half a day of work to do your closing, now you just drive, you drive up there and you're in and out in 30 minutes, which is how it should be.
So walk us through a curbside closing. Obviously I've heard of them now over the last couple of weeks, but what does that look like for the consumer, so we can educate our consumer? And is everyone offering that?
At this point, I believe every title company is offering that.
Okay.
Yeah. And what it means is most lenders now have updated their systems to get buyers to sign their doc. The seller side hasn't really changed. Sellers never went to closing anyway. We always got sellers to sign their documents in advance. You put them in the hands of the title company, and their job is done before closing. So just to be clear, we're mainly talking about the buyer side.
Sure.
the buyer side, lenders are getting them a lot of the documents in advance. They can sign them over the computer, just breeze through them, DocuSign or digitally sign them, or whatever it is. And then they show up to the closing and they have a packet of about 30 documents. They give me a call or a FaceTime. The closer for the title company sends me the same documents they give them.
Mm-hmm.
At this point now, they've learned to send them in the same order that they're sending them. That was kind of a shit show for about a week, but now I have them in the same order that the buyer has them. And one at a time, we go through them. I explain to them what they are. They sign them. We're good. We're done. They call the title company back when they're finished. They pull up in their car. The title company comes down, gives them the documents, says, call me when you're done. They call me. We go through the documents. They call them when they're done. They come down, get their documents, bring them up, send them to the lender, cut the checks, come down and give them a refund check if they wired too much, along with copies of all their documents, and they drive away.
So like ordering pickup, right?
Right.
From a restaurant.
They're prepared in advance. We're reaching out to the closers before they even get there, so we're in touch with them. I'm reviewing the seller documents, the title work, and doing everything on my end before they get there. So when they get there, all we have to worry about are the loan documents. I'm already in touch with the closer by email. So while they're signing documents and we're done with that, I'm emailing with the representative for the title company, getting them anything else they need, answering any other questions. They're updating me on the time frame, and I'm telling the clients, hey, 10 more minutes, hang out.
Yep.
And then that's it. And it's working great.
Adam, it's working great, right?
Yeah.
People are enjoying it. Does this become the new norm? Like, will this become an option, in your opinion? Will this become an option for title companies to offer to the consumer?
I think it will. I think whether or not it becomes the norm depends on how long everyone is forced to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think no matter what, at this point, it'll be an option because we've all figured out that we can do it this way. Mm-hmm. And it's more efficient for everybody. It's probably more efficient for title companies. You don't have to reserve the waiting rooms. I imagine they're not catering lunch and bagels and all the stuff like they were before as much. I think it's more efficient for everybody. So I think it'll remain an option. And I think it might just become the standard if we're forced to keep doing this for another month or two.
Yeah, got it. How about the virtual notary that we did? Why don't we walk through them? How did that work today? So you and I had a client, right? A seller that is going to be selling his place, and he needed to get notarized. He called all the banks, right? Mm-hmm. They're not doing them right now. So obviously something was put into law, right? Something was passed saying you could virtually notarize. So walk us through that.
So that was awesome, by the way. So efficient. I don't think that that's going to last just because I think that just opens the door to too much fraud. Okay. With every new technology that comes along, you're opening the door for more hackers and more fraud and stuff. And the law that was passed, it is specifically noted as a temporary law.
Okay.
There's just a lot of risk involved when it comes to validating signatures, notarizing, et cetera. So I don't think that that will be permanent.
Got it. Do you think
it's great in the meantime?
Yeah, just great in the meantime. So for the realtors out there, if they need something notarized, what steps do they need to take?
You mean if their client needs something notarized?
I'm sorry, yeah. If a transaction needs something notarized, how can they quarterback the situation?
Well, we have a few notaries with our office. So you can coordinate with us. We're adapting to this technology as we speak. And you would just let us know and we can probably set something like that up. Or as you displayed this morning, Joe, a lot of these brokerages have notaries,
right?
And offer notary services. So this one this morning was your guy,
right?
Who was able to handle all of it. So I would say just, so someone out there can do it virtually right now because so many people are, whether it's your brokerage or your attorney, just tell them, hey, I need a virtual notary here. I'm not going to meet people. My client's not going to the bank. Figure out how to get it done. And between the attorney office, the brokerage, and the title company, we can figure out how to get your stuff notarized for you without the client leaving their house.
And guys, just so you know how it happened it was myself, the sellers. I didn't need to be there, but I just was. It was myself, the sellers, our managing broker, Dave Nasso, was on the call because he is a notary, right? And then the clients. And what happened was basically Adam walked them through the docs that they were signing, right? Which one are you looking at? He had them up on his screen, right? And then they were looking at it and he explained what they were, right? Then Dave said, okay, if you have full understanding of what you're signing, please show me your license. So he showed the license, and Dave's recording this whole phone call, right? Or this whole Zoom call. Shows the license, and then they show the signature page, signed it, showed the sign page, right? All on video, and then went to the next one. And then when they were done, they scanned it over to Dave, with using scannable from their phones. They scanned it over to Dave. Dave approved them. They're going to be heading over to Adam's office, right? So,
Yep.
it's good to know that this stuff is going on and can happen, right?
Yeah.
So, when you need to be a resource for your client, you can, when you need to be a resource for your client, you can absolutely be one, and let them know.
I would say at this point, with a few weeks now, a month of this going on, I think everyone's pretty much up to speed. Anything that needs to be done virtually at this point, as far as a real estate transaction goes, I think it can be done.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Whatever it is, any step of the way.
All right, so we talked a lot about some of the changes. All right, Adam,
Mm-hmm.
and again, your prediction, and again, this is it. But we talked about, hey, our drive, our curbside closing is going to be part of it. What changes come out of this for, in your opinion, the good, and which ones are kind of like, who knows what happens? What changes come out of this is outside of curbside closings, from your standpoint, being an attorney with title companies and working with clients. What do you think your overall prediction is of what changes come of it?
I think just overall more time saved for attorneys and realtors, which is nothing but a good thing. Just more time that you have to be on emails and calls and texts with your own clients. Every time I'm at a closing table, I'm missing an hour worth of emails, which in my world is 50 emails. You guys probably the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, without a doubt, just being able to handle everything virtually and not have to travel to the city, to the title companies and back, I think just saves everybody time, and time is money. And I just don't think that there's been any problems with it. So I think this is the new norm, and I think that that's a good thing for everybody. I think the downside is less face time with your client. For me, the attorney, that's a good. Closings are the only time that I have to make a personal impression on my client. Everything is email and phone call up until the closing. So that's, not necessarily, a good thing for us. I'm representing somebody in maybe the biggest purchase of their life, and I never even get to meet them in person. So that's kind of the downside of it. Yeah. But overall, I think just a more efficient real estate transaction is what a consumer will see. Right now, lenders, when you combine the technology with a normal world situation where everything is also moving forward in timely fashion like it usually, right now, lenders are backed up, banks are backed up, everyone's scrambling. So things have just, for the beginning of the pandemic at least, not going very smooth. But when you combine a normal world where things can go smooth with the virtual capabilities we become accustomed to, I think you'll just see a much more efficient real estate transaction beginning to end.
Yeah, it's almost forcing efficiency, right?
It is.
Yeah. Which is
now we just hope there's, that the volume is there.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, when it does pass and we get the volume back, it just will do the efficiency on it.
Right.
As far as communication is concerned, you guys are very big at communication within your team. How are you seeing, your communication with title companies and other attorneys? Is there more communication going on during this time or less, and how are you guys communicating?
So we've always only really worked with the title companies that are, more technologically advanced. So not much different with the title companies. A lot more talking to other attorneys, a lot more lawyering is necessary on these real estate deals just because of, the variables. Yeah. People need to know when they're closing, when they're moving, what amounts to a breach where a seller gets to keep earnest money and at least get compensated for inconvenience,
Mm-hmm.
and an inconvenience of a buyer delaying closing or not closing at all. Um, and so that's, because of that, just a lot more, working out issues with attorneys, and where things were pretty boilerplate and easy to get through before, just a lot more variables to account for.
Yeah. Yeah. That just seems
A lot
like,
more collaboration with other attorneys.
yeah.
And
So
attorneys are nicer to each other now, because everybody knows that you might have this client that's in this situation where you just need the help of another attorney, to be understanding, not be an asshole, not throw the book at you. Now, oh,
right.
this is the deadline and whatever. Hey, we have a pandemic going on. They
Right.
couldn't get their mover scheduled for this time. Or Joe, like we were talking about with our client with the pre-possession agreement,
Correct.
right? Like in a normal world, like no way. You
Yeah.
don't even have a job yet, and you want to move in at home before we have a closing date scheduled? No way. But in this world, it was like, attorneys, let's get on the phone, let's work it out. We gotta, you have a seller that wants to sell, a buyer that wants to buy. We need to find a way to make this work for our client. And so, be lenient with each other and help each other, while also, protecting your client and making sure they don't, get screwed over.
I'm glad you said that, Adam, because I am seeing it personally, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but there was, the industry, there was so much banter back and forth, and so much, pushing, and just kind of craziness. And you've
Right.
kind of seen that cut down a lot, right?
Definitely.
Where agents are now just much more understanding to each other. The operations teams are working, working together collaboratively more, right? And seeing that. So that's more of a personal prediction, but do you think that, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but do you think that is a permanent change?
So tough to say.
Yeah, right.
Because at the same time, as an attorney and a realtor too, you also have to be sharper than ever, because now it's to the point where you just see a lot of people take advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
You see a lot of people who claim they can't do this or that, because of the pandemic or whatever. This is a lot of the landlord tenant stuff I get. Sorry, I can't move out till next month because of what's going on. Well,
Mhm.
they're still movers.
Right.
That's not true. You can move out. You're just not. And so you have to be, you got to be on your toes, and watch out for people that are taking advantage of the situation, and also represent your client. Sometimes your client is just going to be a stickler about things, and if that's how they want to be, then that's kind of how you have to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You got to represent the client, right?
right. You try to chill your client out, but sometimes they're not having it, and they have the right to be that way.
Right.
So
Right. No, that's awesome. Guys, does anyone else have a question here that they want to add to the chat, or unmute themselves for Adam? So I don't not ask that before we go. Adam, in your experience, I'll wait to see if anyone, in your experience here, and again, I kind of asked this, being an attorney, doing 500 transactions, and scaling a business like this, just like the realtors, right? Do you feel that some of the attorneys in your industry are going to be able to weather this storm, and some are going to get knocked out, or what is your prediction for your industry?
I think a lot of the older attorneys with the older practices are just going to have a really tough time. I still get attorney review letters by mail.
Yeah,
I
got it.
still have attorneys who will only fax, and they're actually using real fax machines, not even digital fax.
Right.
And I just think right now I've had a lot of attorneys just bow out of transactions.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see a lot of the same thing with title companies. A lot of this, as the real estate market started to boom,
Yeah.
a lot of newer, smaller title companies were starting companies and trying to, get their deals and whatever, and they weren't as good, didn't have the staff, the underwriting capabilities, the technology, the support staff to be able to manage the workload that the bigger ones are, but they were competing just by networking and what have you. And I think a lot of those are, going to go by the wayside, because they're just not, either don't have the volume to get through it, or don't have the technology, or not as, just technology equipped or advanced to be able to operate in these times.
Adam, I know you're a person that gives, and you always have time for us. So first, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time today.
Absolutely.
And if somebody wants to get a hold of you and has a question, is it okay that they reach out? And if so, what's the best line of communication for you?
Yeah, anybody can email me anytime. Adam@GurneyLawGroup.com. You can call me directly. I have my personal cell phone, 312-931-5302. Anybody can call or text me anytime. We have a website. I mean, we're easily accessible all over the web. If you type my name in, you'll find our website, contact info, all that stuff. So I'm happy to, unfortunately, I have a lot more time than I've ever had in April before. So happy to do things like this and find ways to be productive. So anything I can do to be a resource for any of you guys or help any of you out, feel free to call, email me anytime.
Awesome. Adam, thanks so much for your time. Guys, that is it for today. Tomorrow, we are going to be talking with Amber Rutherford from Keller Williams. Amber is awesome. She is a CEO, a bold coach, CEO of her company. She is a bold coach. She's a business owner. She owns a market center. For those of you who know her, know that she's very dynamic and great. So please tune in tomorrow to hear her. I'll send you guys out, the link and the reminder again. So Adam, appreciate you very much, guys. Have a great rest of the day, and we will talk to everyone real soon. Stay safe.
Stay healthy, everyone.
Cheers.